I'm Jason UFC, and today we have a story about the UFC welterweight division. Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman title fight set for UFC 286 in London. The UFC welterweight title trilogy fight between Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman is set to headline the UFC pay-per-view UFC 286 in March in London. It's a matchup that has long been expected. Edwards versus Usman will have their third match in the main event of the March 18th UFC 286 pay-per-view, which takes place at the O2 Arena in London. The main card airs on pay-per-view and following the prelims on ESPN. UFC president Dana White confirmed the booking Saturday night at UFC Fight Night 217 post-fight news conference. Edwards will attempt to make his first title defense on home soil in London after he scored the 2022 Knockout of the Year award against Kamaru Usman at their UFC 278 main event pay-per-view in August of 2022. The fight extended Edwards' unbeaten streak to 10 fights, which date back to his first encounter with Usman. Usman will attempt to get some redemption on Edwards after seeing his 15-fight UFC winning streak brought to an end. The Nigerian Nightmare was en route to beating Edwards before he was caught by the shocking head kick finish. Despite the loss, he still holds a victory over his rival Edwards in form of a unanimous decision at UFC Fox 17 December 2015. So Edwards and Usman have fought twice already. The first fight was for a non-title fight back in 2015. Edwards lost that fight to Usman. It was a unanimous decision victory for Usman. I believe that was a 3-round fight, and then Edwards knocked out with a head kick. Kamaru Usman last year, 2022 at UFC 278. I believe that was in Utah. I believe it was in Elevation, but that was a third round fight. That was in the 5th round when he head kicked Kamaru Usman, knocked him out. A lot of people had Usman up on the scorecard, so they said he was on way to victory in that match. But obviously, it's a 5-round fight. We saw with Pereira versus Israel Adesanya. I believe it's kind of very similar in that sense. I think Pereira kind of won that first round versus Israel Adesanya, and then he gave up the second, third, and fourth round to Israel Adesanya. Kind of similar with Usman and Edwards. I thought Edwards won their first round at UFC 278, and then I believe Usman won the second, third, and fourth. You know, at least he was probably ahead on the judges' scorecards, and then he got finished just like Israel Adesanya got finished in the 5th round. Yeah, this is interesting. The one thing I'm noticing about this is that there is not a the co-main event will be Rafael Fiziev versus Justin Gaethje. That's a lightweight fight. So there is not any welterweights on this card, right? There's probably someone, but there's no ranked welterweights on this card. No one able to step in just in case anything comes up. You know, Kamaru Usman and Leon Edwards are not really known for missing their fights. But we did have a story a few weeks ago that had Kamaru Usman not in a cast, but he had basically some bandaging on one of his hands. So people didn't really know if this fight was going to even take place. So I was a little bit surprised that this fight was announced for March, which is almost like not less than a month, but a little bit more than a month away, right? You know, today's January 16th, January 15th, 2023. So a little bit surprised that this fight was announced, especially because Kamaru Usman got knocked out cold with a head kick, and I believe that was, when was that? August of last year, 2022. Was that in August? The UFC 278. Yeah, it was in August of last year. You would think after a fight like that, maybe not necessarily a year off, but I think March is a little bit early to come back. You know, if you think of August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, there's a few months. You would think after a head kick knockout like that, you would have to take at least 3 months off just to recover, right? And like I said, we did see Kamaru Usman with some kind of bandaging on one of his hands, basically like a few weeks ago. I believe that was like a couple of weeks ago where we had Kamaru Usman, and not a cast. I don't believe it was necessarily a cast, but he did have some wrapping, some kind of bandaging on one of his hands. So this fight has not been announced until now. We'll see. How does Kamaru Usman look? Remember, this fight is taking place in London, Leon Edwards' backyard. We'll see who wins that fight. Like I said, I don't know if this card is completely set because they just named the main event yesterday. But like I said, I'm just a little bit surprised that we don't see Kobe Covington on this card, a Wonder Boy Thompson on this card, a Bilal Muhammad on this card, a Jorge Masvidal on this card, obviously a Hazmat Chimaev not on this card, so we'll see. That's the one thing I noticed about this is that, the UFC, they usually have a backup fighter. Maybe that's what they're holding some of these fighters off for. Maybe they have a backup fighter, but I don't think any of those fighters want to just weigh in for this event if they're not scheduled for a fight. I think it would make a little bit more sense to schedule at least one, kind of two fighters from the top 10, Bilal Muhammad, Thompson, Chimaev, Covington, Masvidal. None of them are on this card. None of them. So we'll see in the coming weeks if anyone is named a backup fighter. Maybe Chimaev is named a backup fighter for this fight, or if they add maybe another welterweight fight on this card. But let me know who you think is going to win this fight between Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman. This will be their third fight. This will be for the undisputed welterweight championship. I'm Jason UFC. Today we had some news about the UFC welterweight division. Undisputed welterweight champion Leon Edwards will be fighting Kamaru Usman at UFC 286 in London at the O2 Arena. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the $1 donation button, and please tune in to the next video on this channel. Thanks a million for watching.